Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 2. Well, if you thought the first episode was a bit too fast, then I have good news for you. This one will be slower. The footage will still run at 2 times speed, so we get things done, but after the quite busy startup, things will calm down a lot, as we start to build up to a more sustainable economy. We will manage to start building the second tier of construction materials, which is needed to build conveyor belts. We will set up our concrete productions, which will hopefully alleviate our need for bricks, and we will also manage to plan out the first copper production array, which is quite similar to the iron one, but with a small twist at the end. Apart from that, it will be mostly just some general housekeeping, and making sure we actually keep going, instead of grinding to a halt. So, we left off at the end of episode 1 with most of our stuff working as intended, so it is a bit of a waiting game at this point. We managed to dig down at the coal mine to the point where the excavator can reliably scoop up some of the black stuff, so that part of the economy should be okay now. And we just got a fuel warning. I think we just barely managed to build the storage tank at the distiller, so it seems we managed to cut things a bit too close for comfort. But we got away with it with just a warning in the end. I already knew that the current fuel setup will not be enough in the long run. In my experience, on this map it is best to build at least a double distiller setup. By the time the oil deposit runs out, we will already be building the advanced oil processing, at least ideally we should. And check this out. One of the best additions of this big update. Vertical pipes. Before, they could only be built at a 45-degree angle when changing elevation. Now we can be so much more agile with them. It's simply amazing how much it changes the way we play with pipes. And now that we have conveyor belts, I think it's time to set up a coal storage in the area. Trucks can simply come and keep a single building filled, instead of having to worry about 3 separate ones. I think I forgot to hook up the rubber plant. No matter, we can do it later. Anyways, most of the new buildings are white. That means they are paused. That's because I was building in planning mode. If you want to keep the game rolling, and not waste materials on stuff that are not finalized yet, it's quite handy. Let's set up the storages for the iron smelters. Need 1 coal, full all the time, 1 iron, same settings, and 1 for the slag, but we need to keep that 1 empty. Once the conveyor belts are done, then it will be a bit easier to operate. Speaking of the conveyors, we need tier 2 construction parts for them, so we might as well hurry those along a little. Next, let's set up the belts for the tier 1 materials. We have 4 warehouses, and 3 inputs on the factories. Good thing we can combine 2 of those warehouses on a single belt. It will be the same 3-level stacked belt configuration we used at the maintenance depots. Lumber will travel on the top level, iron plates will take up the middle one, while bricks and concrete will use the bottom belt. Good thing that it doesn't really matter if we mix the concrete slabs and the bricks together. Basically, we have 2 different recipes to make the construction parts, only one uses bricks, the other concrete, and since we will have both of them active in the factories, we can feed both at the same port. And thanks to the speed of the construction process, the incoming throughput doesn't really matter, especially with level 2 belts. You know what? Might as well just place down the rest of the belts, only in planning mode. We can build the ones going to the existing factories, and build the rest later. I think because of the way I've drawn them, 1 or 2 might be facing the wrong way. No matter, I'm sure I will notice the error when the time comes. Now, here's the thing. The game recognizes when a building gets conveyor connections, and if applicable, it will forbid vehicles from importing or exporting stuff for them. I think this also applies to belts that are not finished yet. But, we only need to tell the buildings to allow these exports again at the top of their info windows, and we can carry on while those belts are under construction. I don't think we need the second distiller just yet, but we should be building the coal storage, I think. To speed up the belt constructions, I set the Tier 2 materials to Priority 1 for now. We will knock it down to the default value later, since we don't need it so urgently. I also told the Tier 1 factories to allow vehicles to import stuff for them. Those belts are not built yet. Let me fix that ramp. We only really need it to be 1 tile wide. We can widen in later, once the retaining walls come into play. Just to help out a little, I gave the coal mine 2 more trucks. Once we have the local storages, 2 will be plenty enough, but 4 might be necessary now. There we go, we have conveyor belts. They will be a huge help in giving our trucks some rest. I really cannot wait for that fuel station tech to be researched. And looking at the progress bar at the top, it will be done fairly soon. I still don't know how I feel about this change of having multiple mixed stuff in trucks. I do like it on paper, but I think it could have been handled a bit better. We have a way of sorting these kinds of stuff on belts already, so it could have been a pretty good use case for them. But the way the trucks can just selectively drop things off feels a bit gamey to me. Also, I did notice that the developers changed where the advanced logistics tech is on the research tree. It was moved from Tier 2 to Tier 1. That's pretty big. We can set up local sorting for excavated materials earlier than usual, so I quickly put that on top of the queue. And the fuel stations were made available, so I quickly placed one down at the dock, so it could be fed from that gas tank. That one needs Tier 2 construction parts, same as the belts, so it might take some time to finish. I also decided to set up a storage for finished iron plates. That way, trucks can just load up at a single place. Plus, we can set up warnings later, letting us know if we are running out. We had a truck waiting around at the mining tower. That's a very good sign, that tells me it had no place to drop coal off, meaning everything was already full. Might as well set these belts to be high priority constructions. This way, they'll get the materials before anything else, obviously. And we had enough Tier 1 materials to quick build the second factory for Tier 2. That should help to speed things up a little. Next, how about we deal with the copper production next? First, we need a copper mine, of course. That amount of mining should last us for quite a while. Now, we need to build the actual copper smelting. This looks like a pretty decent place for it. Fairly close to both the copper mine, as well as the coal. Most of this setup is pretty much identical to the iron smelting we built earlier. I think the molten channel should run on the other side. Might as well just copy the whole thing to the other side. Okay, so this is pretty much what we had at the iron smelting, right? The thing is, smelting copper gives us impure copper as a product. And we kind of need it to be pure. That's where electrolysis comes in. In these early days, we will just simply dip the impure plates into water, and use electrolysis to strip the pure copper, and leave behind the impurities. This is a bit inefficient, but later we will be able to use acid instead of water, which makes it a 1-to-1 ratio. This of course means that we need a source of water. 2 rain harvesters should be enough to satisfy one of these electrolysis buildings. We can just build 2 more when we build the other half of this setup. And this is where vertical pipes come in handy again. This setup used to be so much more convoluted with those 45-degree pipes. Now, they are a breeze. Behold! A nice little maintenance setup. We just need to keep in mind, the current factories can only satisfy one of those depots. If we start to run out of maintenance points, we will need to upgrade the factories, not the depots. And the construction factory belts are well on their way to completion. Might as well set up some storages near the brick factory too. One for coal, and another for dirt. The water is already taken care of. Nice. We now have copper mining up and running. It will take a while to do the same for the actual processing, but we still have 250 plates in storage, so we are not really in a hurry. These belts are close to being finished. One less thing our trucks will need to worry about. And just to speed things along a bit more, I decided to give the Tier 2 factories a Unity boost. Basically, it doubles their production speed by sacrificing some of our Unity income. We are making more than enough, so might as well. Now, one of the tutorial objectives is to repair the shipyard. It requires 100 Tier 1 construction parts, so it's a bit of a big deal right now. I still got it started, but set it to the lowest priority. Just in case we have any of those parts that are not needed elsewhere. Next, we have the inputs sorted for the Tier 1 parts, but not the output. We can just stuck the warehouse at the other end of the array, and use belts to pull them there. Hey, the input belts are done. Nice. And the slag output on the iron smelters is now complete. Very nice, we could Unity build the last remaining belts on the Tier 1 factories. Now we just need the actual storage. The factories themselves should be set to allow exports already, so trucks can still come and empty them out once they start backing up. And it seems the food in the settlement is pretty stable. Sure, we are only eating potatoes right now, but that should change in the near future, by adding some healthy veggies into the pot. Oh, right. We added the conveyor belts for the iron casters. We need to set them to allow trucks to interact, at least until the warehouse is done. And we just managed to research concrete production. Complexity is about to be increased slightly. The actual concrete is made in these mixers. They have 4 inputs: water, cement, and 2 for the aggregate materials. First, we need some place to collect the finished concrete slabs. Then, we need a way to bring in water. I prefer to route it above the output belts. The middle input is for the cement. That one uses the simple flat conveyors. The remaining 2 inputs are for sand and some kind of filler materials. Sand is easy enough, we just dig it up at the beach at the beginning. But the fillers are a bit more involved. And this is my preferred way of building the belts for this particular product. The cement will come in on level 1, the sand will use level 2, and the level 3 belts will be routed above and behind the input ports, and we sneak them down just above the middle lane. Nice and easy. I could have just used the same stacked belt setup we used before, but I did this same thing in the last series, and I've been doing it like this ever since. Now, the cement is made in these rotary kilns. One of these can supply enough for 2 mixers. At least they could before the update. I really need to get back into the habit of double checking these kinds of ratios, especially after big updates like this. The devs like to change things around. Those so-called filler materials are made in these crushers. We have 2 options. Either we use gravel, which is made from rocks, or we use crushed slag, which I will not tell you what it's made of. Since we are not yet digging deep enough to get stones reliably, I think I will just use crushed slag, since we should get plenty of that from our blast furnaces. The last thing we need is a place for sand. As I've said, that's just a mineable material right now, so I'll just have a simple storage for it where trucks can drop it off, and we belt it into the setup. And that should do it for now. Let's just add a groundwater pump for water, and it's ready for construction. Not really necessary, but might as well leave a gap for vehicles. The trucks can pass under level 3 pipes and belts without issues. But, excavators and other taller stuff need to have proper vehicle ramps. Just FYI. Oh, right. We should also add storages for limestone and coal at the rotary kiln. Better to have these things right at hand. We also need to actually mine sand and limestone. Sand comes from the beach, and limestone from the mountains nearby. For sand, I only dig down to level 1. That is still above sea level, and if we need to dig deeper, we can just build retaining walls along the coast. Not quite sure if it was a good idea to demolish the coal furnace yet. We should get a tutorial objective later to turn it off, since we have coal mining now. Might need to rebuild it if it doesn't accept the demolition as an alternative. Now that the belts are done here, we should tell the factories to disallow vehicles from interacting with them. Also, now that we have concrete production underway, we can enable the relevant recipe as well. And the fuel station should be finished any second now. And done. We just need to add a couple trucks to it, and those will deliver gas to the excavators. Mining efficiency should get a big boost after this. Nice. We have most of the coal trucks waiting at the tower. 2 should be enough to deal with this now. Okay, the lack of iron in the smelter made me go for the mining storages. If the trucks assigned to the operation can simply drop things off locally, and leave the actual dumping to the other vehicles, then they don't need to travel all over the place to empty themselves out. This requires 6 buildings in total, 2 for each of the mineable materials. They will be built in series for each, with the first one being the actual drop-off point for the mining trucks, and the second one being the pickup point for the outside ones. The first storage will be connected to the tower, and the second one will be set to be kept empty. Once again, I was a bit hasty with this one. By assigning the drop-off storages to the tower before they are built, the mining trucks won't be able to empty their cargo. If they have a dedicated storage assigned, they will never go anywhere else from then on. Even if they are not yet finished building. And this is where I think the mixed cargo could be made a bit better. We could set a single storage as a mixed drop-off for the trucks, and then use conveyor sorters to separate the different materials, leading into dedicated containers. The trucks being able to do this sorting by themselves doesn't feel right. Wait, now that we have concrete researched, we can buy that too. If the bricks get a bit too pricey, now we have an alternative. And this is how I like to set up my construction parts production. I like to keep half of one tier stored away for use, and the other half can be sent out to be upgraded to the next level. We just need to set the output warehouse to be emptied out above 50%. The concrete facility is still heavily under construction. It's a bit of a hassle that the lack of concrete slabs is what keeps our construction back, and we need more parts to build it all up. So we will need to rely on trading for a little bit longer. Also, the Tier 1 research is now complete. To keep progressing, we will need to upgrade our tech facilities, and we will also need to start producing lab equipment. And for all that, we need to sort out our construction industry. That doesn't mean we cannot queue up some of the technologies in advance. I set the burner to be the next tech we research, just so we can start burning our garbage, and then I set the advanced power production next, including the mechanical power storage for the flywheels. The rest were just selected at random. This is where I realized that maybe we shouldn't have the mining storages assigned to the towers before they are finished. By the way, in case you've been getting anxious about that warning notification on the top right, don't worry. That's just because we were dumping dirt at the coast for a little bit, so the ground got a bit slippy under the trading dock. Now that we are back to only dumping rock and slag, it should be fine. Now that we have more than one option for the third materials for the construction parts and trading, we can make sure we trade for the one that is the cheapest. Also, since the conveyor belts are pretty much done, we can reset the priority on the Tier 2 factories. Since the concrete facility is well on its way to completion, we might as well order the 2 excavators for the sand and the limestone. And we can get some extra trucks to boot. Don't worry about that fuel warning. That's an excavator, so it just means that the fuel trucks didn't reach it in time. It goes away quite quickly. Looks like we have one excavator done, so we can add it to the limestone mine. The next one will go to the sand pit. And the copper smelting is done. We only need some coal to get it started. And I think at this point we can safely turn off the partial loading option in the truck's interface. This will force trucks to go for jobs that will make use of their entire cargo space, instead of running deliveries while half empty. This does not exclude partial loading completely, they will still go and pick up a single piece of construction part if that's all what's needed to finish building something. Might as well copy that mining drop-off setup to the other towers. We just need to ensure that the actual main mining material is set correctly on them. We don't really need this for sand though. That one should only ever dig up sand, and never encounter dirt or rocks if we set it correctly. Anyways, I think this is where we will have to leave things for today. Despite the troubles with the bricks/concrete slabs, we did some good work. We managed to plan the concrete and copper productions, and managed to build most of them. And once the slabs are rolling off the conveyors in their dozens, then we can start thinking a bit bigger. And now that you've seen what an early game setup is like, you might have some ideas about what to expect from the later stages of the game. I think the next two big projects will have to be power, quickly followed by advanced diesel refining, with all the complexities that are involved in that process. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, then leaving a like and subscribing to the channel just might motivate me to make more. If you are more in the donating mood, you can find a link to my Ko-fi page in the description, where you can buy me a glass of water. I don't really drink coffee. Thank you for your support, and until next time, I will see you later.